Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast on the Sicha for Project Likutei Sichas. Today we are podcasting, learning, bringing about the Sicha in Likutei Sichas Chelek Chaf Hey. And the Sicha that we are talking about is the Sicha of Toldos Beis, the second Sicha in Toldos. And just as a quick intro, um, we know Ma'asav Siman Labanim, that what our forefathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov have done and everything that we know about them is a lesson for us. And we find a very interesting thing about Yitzchak that he sat in his Yisrael, he sat in his place. And furthermore, the Parshas told us this is a message to us. What is the message, especially coming on the heels of Avram, of going out and of doing and opening an Eshel and food and come and go? What is the message of Yitzchak? What can we take away in our day-to-day life? So just to unpack and bring the parsha to life, and what's the context here? Moshe, we're going to turn it over to you to get us started.
Okay, so obviously we're beginning with the very beginning of the parsha. Ve'ele Toldos Yitzchak ben Avram. The parsha begins by saying, "These are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avram." Now, it's actually a lot of moving parts in the Sicha. So one point that Rebbe establishes is that from the fact that Yitzchak remained in Eretz Yisrael, this is the lesson to us that we have to know wherever we end up in the world that our home is Eretz Yisrael, not just geographically, but also meaning that Eretz Yisrael is Hashem's palace, Eretz Yisrael is Hashem's space, and we are Hashem's children. That is where we belong. Wherever we might be, we daven every day. We ask Hashem to bring us back to Eretz Yisrael, to bring Mashiach, reminding us that wherever we are is not our ultimate home. But then the Rebbe introduces the fact that we have Avram and Yitzchak, both of whom are our avos. And the Rebbe therefore explains that Avram and Yitzchak represent two types of Jews. Avram was the one who always went out into the world, went down to Mitzrayim, left Eretz Yisrael, engaged with the people, and as the Midrashim tell us, how we would teach about the presence of Hashem in this world. Yitzchak, on the other hand, always remained in Eretz Yisrael. His influence on the world came from within, not almost as if, but you have those that influence the world through learning Torah, and those who influence the world through good deeds and through bringing Hashem into the worldly matters. So, what we learn from Avram is the importance of the importance of outreach, of going out into the world, whether as a quote unquote outreach professional / shliach, whether as a business professional or a person that has a 9-to-5 job that is engaged in the world
Yisachar
Zvulun, and brings Hashem into his daily life, into his store, into the people that he engages with every single day. And then you have those and the lesson to them is that they should also learn some Torah. They should also be like Yitzchak. And then there are those that spend most of the time learning Torah, and they are the Yitzchaks, but they must learn from Avram to also go out into the world. The twist is the concept of Toldos, that when we're talking, up until here, Avram is outreach, Yitzchak is inside Torah. But all of a sudden, you look at the name of the parsha, Toldos Yitzchak, Toldos, which obviously means spiritual children, bringing people from the outside world into Hashem's inner circle, is this parsha talking about Yitzchak. If Yitzchak is the in-reach guy, then why is he associated with Toldos to the point that this parsha is named Toldos? And this is where the Rebbe discusses this idea of where do we find the ultimate Toldos? Is it for Avram or Yitzchak? And I'm going to throw it back to you guys to take it from here.
absolutely fascinating to me that right after the Kinnos, literally a couple days coming back from the Kinnos, where the whole world has been shown the Abraham, the Lubavitch, the Chabad, who have reaching every single far place of the world. And not settling down for a moment in a second. The Sicha we're learning and the Parsha is Toldos. Yitzchak is about specifically the Rebbe guiding us three all shluchim, right? Is pushing us very much in the direction that in order to be really successful, to find like the core success of what we do, is we have to be Yitzchak, and to answer, and that's the answer to your question, the question of the Sicha, which is why specifically Yitzchak and not Avram and not Yaakov have a parsha called um, Toldos, because ultimately the children, right, are going to be when we can behave like Yitzchak. And there's a lot to talk about, and I'm going to open it up. I just want to say one line of the Sikha, that because one line, to go back, and then we can go thing, which I'll go straight to the Fabrengen for me. It's, of course, I have to sit and learn Torah. There's no question, right? There's no question. That's what I have to do. But I'm a man of action. I'm a man of doing. That's what I am. I'm a man of Avram. I wake up in the morning. I'm, a shliach. I have a million things to do in my head. When you're learning Torah, the Rebbe says it has to be in a way of Yitzchak, in an oifen as demot haben sie nit kin shum daiges ka euch lehamon, kin shum andere machshavas. Such a beautiful one line, such a beautiful line, is not just shut your phone down, but to remove everything. You have to be a Yitzchak. Isn't just about, okay, I'm learning project which obviously, in order to learn to be a shliach, it's about learning in a way that you call aman. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. Shut it down. Shut your life down. Connect to the Torah you're learning in a perfect way, and that is ultimately the way of Yitzchak. Anyway, I'll start. I have a lot more to say, but we'll see where we go.
I think that just on that note, to bring that together, let's just talk about that for a minute, because the Sicha is really talking, well, one of the things is about this dichotomy of our outreach, of our business life, of our day-to-day, which most of us, of our gullus, of the diaspora world, of how we live day to day, and then really circling back to our core and not forgetting that, and being able to shut everything down and remember and anchor ourselves, ground ourselves in what is it that we really are? What is it that we're really standing about? What is that, all that roast beef, or that on Rosh Hashanah? What is it all about? Um, so this just talking about what you're saying about learning. I think it really, since we talk about ourselves, we're talking to people, to take a moment to just reflect for a second. If you think about it, there was a time when the Jewish people would never be able to fathom life outside Eretz Yisrael. Before they left, try and put yourself into that mode for a moment, with everything going on. It didn't make any sense. But it doesn't matter where they were going, whether it be way before America, anywhere in the world. A Jew was in Israel, and everything and that's where the people were, and that's where everything went on, and there was no such thing to think about. How could you think? We live in a world today where it's very different. Of course, we all yearn for Eretz Yisrael and for Mashiach coming and for visiting and for going, and it's all amazing. But we live in Galus, we live in an exile, and it's very easy to lose that anchor, to lose that core, and taking it, just circling it around to a deeper perspective of identity, is the Torah. It's the same thing, that we're so busy with changing the world and doing everything that we need to do, and the businesses that we run, and the Chabad houses that we run, and the things that we have to do. Everything is the Torah. And it may not be something we could do all day, and it may not be what we're doing all day, but dipping ourselves back into that moment where everything, like Yisrael was saying, is non-existent, and we're just there, basking in the light of Eretz Yisrael, basking in that spirituality. But when we're there is really just like, it's almost like you can't do it without. You can't have the Yiddishkeit, you can't have a shluchus, you can't have anything that you do. You can't have
Toldos.
You can't. Yeah. I mean, you could do good work in the world. You could do good things, but you can't. You can't really. At least I'm saying not you. I'm saying I can't without the anchor. Like what? It's the anchor. This is the Yitzchak. Just mentioning something that the Rebbe speaks about in the Sicha. The Rebbe says that we refer to Yitzchak, Ki ata avinu, that you are our father, in a reference to Las Love, we're going to recognize Yitzchak, our father. I also find that fascinating. Avram is so Avram, Yaakov. There's so many things. Moshe, Aaron. I don't know. You could go on and on and on. But that circling back to the origin, circling back to the truth, circling back to putting everything else away, and a reminder of where a Yid belongs. A Jew belongs in Eretz Yisrael. A Jew belongs immersed in Torah. A Jew belongs in the Beis Hamikdash. A Jew belongs in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh. This is who our nation is. This is who we are. We're lost. We're a lost nation in exile. We're a lost nation in Galus, and we're doing the best we can. And it's amazing what we're doing, and we should continue. But let's not forget, and this is really a very grounding sikha to circle us back to Yitzchak. Anyway, I'll turn it over to Maishlo, lead us into the next part of the Fabrengen here.
Okay, I just have to a little bit first continue on the topics that you brought up. I love the fact that you picked up that Ondaigus, because it was like such a key line for me. And I'm jumping ahead of myself, but I think that even before we even get to the concept of Torah, and really what you said was very, very powerful. That how lost we are, and there's a concept even without Yiddishkeit, a concept that person has to be every once in a while has to become centered in their own life. We're so frazzled, and we're covering so many different things, our children and our job, and especially if your job is outreach, then there's so many different people that you're working with, or whatever it is, whatever, and there has to be a time where we have to center ourselves to rediscover, who am I, what do I stand for. It's almost as if we have to separate for a moment, for the lack of a better term, the shliach and the shlichus. Or I don't want to make this only about shlichus, so I'll say the person and the mission. In other words, the person has to be centered in order for them to be able to do their mission. And what centers us as a Yid is Torah. So this concept is that we have so much going on. There has to be a part of our day where we stop what we're doing, we shut it down, not just turn the phone off like you said, and not just on vibrate, but the phone is in a different room, and everything the phone represents doesn't exist. And then I can rediscover who I am, and then I'm able to do the mission because I've reconnected with myself. And this actually leads. I just want to add one more point to this, and then I'll just introduce the next point, and that is that later in the Hira of the Sicha, the Rebbe says that the learning is nicht abtreten chas v'shalom von der shlichus. It's not like I take a break from my shlichus in order to learn, and then I can go back to no. That is part of it. Part of what I'm doing is learning. Just like they always say, if your job is in fundraising, is you can't say this is my mission, and in order to fund my mission, I have to fundraise. Fundraising is a part of the mission. The mission will never be as successful without that part. And so learning Torah is part of that mission. It's not like a break in order to rejuvenate. And this, of course, brings us to another discussion in the Sicha, and that is the concept of Toldos. And how does this Yitzchak thing work? How does a person learn Torah and then fulfill the mission? And the concept that, on the contrary, there is specifically when we're learning Torah, there is a way to fulfill the mission in such a strong way that's the ultimate Toldos. And I'm going to throw my idea in, and I want you guys to either challenge me or support me, whichever one you feel is best. But I think that there is, up until this point, we're really talking about the mission. The mission is, to change the world, and we change the world through Torah, through outreach, or through influencing, and so on and so forth. But then there is talking about me and how the influence that I want to have on another person, and the only way that I can have the ultimate influence on the person is if I'm in a good place. How do I know that my influence was successful? Is when that person, when we can only see the outside, but really it's a reflection of the inside. When that person becomes a changed person, that not only that they're doing the motions, but their life has become changed. We often use tefeach, I want to pause, stop. I'm talking too much, but I just wanted to plant the seed that the ultimate mission is when the person is transformed or the world is transformed, and not just when they are going through with emotions.
I want to just pause for a second to just rewind a little before we get to the full transformation. Just ask a general question because I think this will be a good lead up into it. Just especially like Israel said, coming off the Kinus HaShluchim and the pictures and the people and the conference and the dinner and just the whole weekend and the social media around it and everybody talking and the reach of Chabad and the numbers and Baruch Hashem, it's like just unbelievable. It's a. I have a question. What is the population of Chabad? How many Chabad people are there? How many of the Jewish populations, about 15, 16 million Jews today in the world, about half in Israel, half outside of Israel, how many belong to Chabad? How many Chabadniks are there in the world? It's a fair question.
Very fair. How
So,
do you define Chabadnik?
so that's what I was getting to. So the question is, what does it mean to be a Chabadnik? What does it mean? I'm part of Chabad, right? So I think that question is sort of intertwined with this here because what's Chabad, at least in our generation, our conversation is about the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's mission, and the Rebbe's our father, and the Rebbe's our teacher, and the Rebbe's our inspirer, and the Rebbe's legacy, and the Rebbe's shlichus mission and inspiration through his teachings and through everything is handed over to us, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're all doing. So in the Sicha, it says, how could you be a child? How could you be a child of the Rebbe? How could you be a child of Yitzchak? How could you carry that torch forward? What does it mean to be a child? To be that? You need to be b'doy bela'av. You need to be similar to your father. And I think that there's a definition here that talks to us if we want to know what does it mean to be Chabad. I'm talking like I'm zoning into Chabad, but really it's a broader question of Jewish identity and a broader question of mission and purpose, a Jewish identity in the world. So I think understanding that will help us, dissect that transformation.
So I want to actually pivot for a moment and make a point, and that is that it's not necessary to say it in the Sicha because that's the default. But because when we're talking about Yitzchak, what we have to remember is that let's say you're talking about your own children or you're talking about people in your community, and you're operating in a Yitzchak way, which is basically that you're learning Torah and you're creating an environment that draws people to you and they get inspired by you or by what you stand for. We can never forget that we always need the Avrams because not every child is actually going to be drawn in by your light. You could be on the top of the world.
I think we know that as Lochem. I think we as in we.
I understand that we know that, but first of all, sometimes we box it in and we say that the not from kid is out there and the quote unquote from kid or born from kid is in there, and in reality, that's not the case. Because if we're talking about our own kids, for some of them, they'll see what we're doing and they'll follow us because they like us, they respect us, and some of us are not going to follow us. And for that, we need to be an Avram, an Avinu, and we need to go to where they are and bring them in. And in reality, if you're using the term Chabadnik or whatever it is, then every single person that is touched by Avram, even if they are all the way out there, I'm putting that in Genzen Afislach in quotation marks, so they're all the way out there, they still are a child in a sense of Avraham Avinu. And even those that are drawn to us and are also they're connected. I would say that Chabad, the term Chabadnik, whatever term, is extremely broad because anybody that was touched by the Rebbe, by a chassid of the Rebbe, that and begins to learn and experience. If you want to use the term Chabadnik, but then there's a more exclusive term which is Toldos. Which Toldos is sort of what we want to take that person, whether they're through Avram all the way out there, or through Yitzchak. We want that we should be Toldos, and that every Yid should be a Toldos.
Okay, so if I can, I want to just end off what my thoughts are on the Sicha over here and make it a little personal to me. And that is, the Rebbe said the Sicha on the second night of Sukkot, which is the Shpizin of Yitzchak, Mazritcha Magid, when, if you look at it from an outside perspective, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, Avraham Avinu is the hero of Chabad. So what I mean to say is, he's our model. The Rebbe, the whole machine of shluchas, Basi Lagani, was
First
Avraham.
mimer. First mimer.
It was the first mimer of the Rebbe was, you got to give yourselves with mysterious nefesh, with dedication, not to think about yourself, put yourselves aside, put your family, everything on the line, front line, pure mysterious nefesh for Am Yisrael, for the world. And that's what it is. Along comes his Sicha and says, hold a second, Toldos means foreverness, longevity, pnimius, okay? Inwards belongs to Yitzchak. What does it mean to Yisrael, Wilhelm? What am I taking from the Sicha? Okay, we skipped a big part of the Sicha. The Rebbe speaks about the whole idea of you can be in your place. And the way Mazritcha Magid was, he was never traveled, and everybody came to him. And in many ways, that's what the Rebbe. The Rebbe never left Brooklyn. You know what I mean? The Rebbe was at one place, and from one office, and literally from 3 blocks in Crown Heights, you know. And the rest is so the concept of not having to always run around and chase and this is when you're a parent and you're trying to influence your children. It doesn't mean you always have to chase them. It means your kids need a parent. They need somebody they can look up to. They need somebody who they're looking closely, and he's a Yitzchak, somebody who's working on themselves, somebody who's a pnimi, somebody who's in the language of Chassidus, digging wells, digging deep, he making himself a better person. And the same thing with our Chabad, my Chabad house. Yeah, of course I have to run around and have to go and have to give myself everything. But ultimately, when I have hundreds of students coming through my Chabad house, it's happening in a way that you're building a moisid that's a Yitzchak moisid. It's a moisid, it's an organization that people I could come to, that people are coming to without you having to do anything. Because people, and it's in anything, whatever you do. And it's a very real avodah after the kinnos hashluchim, after the hype of the kinnos, to remember to shut myself, that my job as Yisrael Wilhelm is to lock myself up and to be a chassid and to learn Torah and to learn the Rebbe's Torah and to forget about everything. And that's what my students need, and that's what my family needs, and that's what people need. And I remember I just said one story for the day, and then that's by L'chaim, right? I heard it, I think it was from, anyway, I'm not gonna say a shit just because I got the wrong shliach, but a shliach someone, I think I know, 99% know who it is. And he said how there was a Jew who came to town, it was in Thailand, and he walked into his Chabad house. He just wanted to know, he had a question to himself: are there Jews who really pray, who really daven? Does that really exist? He didn't come to Chabad to sin. He wanted to sin. He walked in, and she said, yeah, that's what you needed to see. You needed to see, is there a Yitzchak? Is there someone who's really working on themselves? And that can mean anything, anybody we're trying to influence, and anything we're trying to accomplish in life. We need to be real, honest, good people, and who work on ourselves, who are Yitzchaks, who are learning Torah, who are connected, who are Chassidim, and the rest will follow suit. Chaim.
Chaim Yisrael, that was beautiful. My takeaway, and from the Sicha, is I tried very hard to see the Sicha from the perspective of every single Yid, not just the perspective of Shluchim. But since you keep on going back to the Kinnos and to Shluchim, so I'm going to invoke your Shver, Alav Shalom, Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Kagan, who spoke at a banquet many years ago, when the banquet was still sort of an internal farbrengen amongst Shluchim. He was the keynote address, and he spoke about the corporate shliach. That sometimes when shlichus becomes a business or a business like, so he spoke about the attaché case, and the suit and the tie, and what do you, I'm selling Judaism. I have a job, I have a business, I sell Judaism. And of course, I mean, we grew up with him, and this was the exact opposite of who he was, despite the fact that he dressed, in his very English Statetna ways and so on and so forth. But Kol Mahusai was a person that was a shliach of the Rebbe.
Yitzchak.
Yitzchak. Yitzchak, at 6 a.m. when we were going to the mikveh before Seder Chassidus, you could hear him teaching himself the Maimer, like through the window. He was possibly learning Chassidus, talking to himself, the Chavrusa. And there was a certain thing, a certain element of that, and I believe that this is something that the Sicha is teaching us. That whether you're doing it as a shliach or whether you're doing whatever, or you're doing it from your own world, there's no such thing of I'm not exactly sure the words I'm thinking. I know I'm talking faster than I'm thinking, but whatever we're doing in the world, it's not who we are. We go out to the world to get something done, but we always have to remember that that is not who I am. The corporate person, the worldly person, I have to go out there because that's what Abishter wants from me, to make a dira b'tachtenim, but that's not who I am. Who am I? I'm the person who learns Torah. I'm the person who's defined by Torah. And ultimately, those people that we find out there in the world and we bring them closer, if they see in us the corporate shliach, then we can only bring them that far. They'll become a corporate shliach. And that's not the goal. The ultimate goal is to turn them in to the children of the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the only way we can do that is when we become a child of the Eibusher B'doim Ha'avis, that the mission that we're doing is because that's what the Eibusher wants from us, and the chayas and the recharge and the essence is back in the Likutei Sichos.
I'll just wrap up that actually
Waiting for that.
this Shech Mishla, I think that this Sicha is just unbelievable how everything, so this is all just one line. It's just one line. It's just amazing. Last week we talked about the Malach going, is Itcha next to you or Lefanecha, or the Malach is before you, and we didn't have a chance to podcast that Sicha, but it's a different way of walking. And whether the malach is ahead of you, which basically means that you go with a certain, the way I understood that is you go with certain confidence and identity and strength, that everything's already set, and this is the truth is shining, and everything's going to happen the way it's supposed to, and life is beautiful, and of course you work hard and all that. That's one approach. Or the other one is you get involved in the nitty gritty and you ask Abishur to help you along the way, every single way you're going back and forth, back and forth. And I think here it's a lesson for us that we have the opportunity to live in both of those lifestyles, with both Torah and with the business and the work that we do. But the question is, where is our inner core, and how well is it shining out? And that when that inner core of our Torah Judaism, of our learning Torah, is one with us, and we make the time for it, and we're really in that moment, like Yisrael said, there's nothing exists in that moment, then that light shines ahead of us, and it paves the path for whatever else that he needs to go. And on a personal level, it also builds a certain chutzpah and confidence, not chutzpah in a bad way, of life, of living life, just rolling with the punches and going, because we know we have the Torah with us, we know who we are, we're connected to our core, we're grounded, we're centered, not every minute, but we come right back to it. So, not that it's only Likutei Sichos, but let me just say, if you don't have a shir every week in Chassidus, then I'm going to say you should have a shir in Chassidus at least once a week. And if you're not sure what it could be, maybe just at least start with Project Likutei Sichos, take a Sicha a week, and it will center you. It will center you. And then from there you'll learn more, of course, and Nigla, Chassidus, and everything else that comes forward. But it's really important to have that anchor, and it will really be the lefanecha. It'll shine. It'll be the angel that walks before you and gives you that guidance in everything, and in our business life, in our shlichus life, in our family life. L'chaim.
Thank you.
God bless. We'll see you all next week.
It's Hashem.